Hello all! So I just got done watching the last episode of Scream. I had reviewed the first episode and gave you all my thoughts, but I thought I should review the season as a whole. So this is my review of the Scream TV show Season 1. Alright, so I guess I should start off this review by mentioning that the creator of the original Scream series unfortunately, very unfortunately, passed away recently. That's, of course, Wes Craven. He directed such films as The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream. He redefined what horror was supposed to be, not once, but twice in his lifetime. Like, there are so many copycats of Nightmare on Elm Street, and then there was so many copycats of Scream. He completely remade up what horror should be twice in a row, and that is a feat all of its own. And he died while this show was being made. He was a producer. Some speculate he was a producer in name only, had no impact on the show, but he might have had a little impact. In any case, this is the last thing that's going to be made with his name attached to it in some sense. So in a way, this is his swan song. This is what he goes out on. And is it a good thing for him to go out on? It's definitely a very sad note. MTV even did a little bit of a tiny tribute to him at the start of the final episode. It was a very small thing, but of course he just died so recently they probably couldn't come up with anything any more grand, so it's understandable. But anyways, Wes Craven kind of made two different types of films. He made groundbreaking, genre-bending films, and he made crappy, silly, campy messes. He had a silly, sly sense of humor, and every now and then he tried to put in his movies, and it didn't translate too well. So he had groundbreaking films like Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street, but then he had silly, campy films like Deadly Friend or Shocker. Chances are, if there's this Wes Craven film and you haven't seen it, it's one of the campy ones, and you're probably better off not seeing it. Because the only reason anyone sees Deadly Friend is so they can see a head explode because of a basketball. Now that is awesome, but the movie itself isn't that good. And if I had to pick what type of thing this show falls into, it's definitely the campier side of Wes. And it is a bit sad that he goes out on that note, but what you gonna do? It's not untrue to him. It's not an insult to him. It did have some great moments. I just wish it was still with us and we got a better show. But anyways, on to the review itself, I guess. I had some complaints with the first episode that I took on serious issues and didn't deal with them that well. And that complaint still holds true. But to be honest, it kind of forgot about those serious issues after the first 2 or so episodes and then just started dealing with regular plot points. The whole person having their video placed online and being mocked by it was soon forgot after episode 3. And though it was handled poorly, because it was completely forgotten, I kind of just moved on. No, it turned out my main complaint with the show actually was this. The show had a lot of red herrings. It was a mystery show, who was the killer, but made it a mystery and who was the killer by having red herrings. Characters who you thought were the killer but weren't. And that's usually good in a mystery, but these red herrings were painfully obvious that they weren't the killer. But yet the story kept talking about them and they became subplots all of their own. Like a character was being blackmailed, so they had to talk about this character being blackmailed a whole lot. And a teacher was watching the students with malicious software on their computer, so they had to talk about that a whole lot. And this other character might have been the son of the original killer, so they had to talk about that a whole lot. And all these were obvious red herrings. They all had nothing to do with the actual killer. They all added up to nothing. And it kept just introducing them. Oh, the boyfriend of the main character must be the son of the killer. Oh, who's being blackmailed? Why are they being blackmailed? Oh, this and that, this and that. And you knew for a fact that this had nothing to do with the killer. This had nothing to do with why people were dying. And was just a pointless subplot. So you just wanted this show to move on and forget about that and get back to the main killer, but it barely ever did. And as a result, it spent so much time obsessing about these subplots that actually pushed Ghostface to the side completely. There was a few episodes where he wasn't even in it, or he never even called or had a phone call. In fact, he became in it less and less, and it got more obsessed with the side plots more and more, that it became a show that had barely anything to do with Scream. The only 2 episodes really felt like Scream because they actually revolved around the killer. And that was In the Trenches and the last episode. Those were the 2 episodes that actually revolved around the killer. It's kind of like if you grabbed a Friday the 13th film and you slapped it on, and it's about these kids driving to Crystal Lake, and their car breaks down before they get there, and they have to go get a spare tire, and they get mugged while getting a spare tire, and they call the cops, and the cops arrest the mugger, and then they get the tire, they put the tire on the car, and they drive to Crystal Lake, and they finally get there, and then the movie ends. It would be as if a Friday the 13th just forgot about Jason completely. I realize that actually happened in a couple of the Friday the 13th films, and I know the fans don't like those movies, so imagine that for Scream. And that's this show. It completely, at times, forgot that there was a Ghostface in it because it got so caught up in its dumb subplots. Now, every time it remembered there was a Ghostface, and every time it decided to focus on him or her, the show was good. It was really good. In Trenches, that episode revolved around Ghostface, and it was fantastic. So I know that the show could be good, but it never focuses and it never stays good. It has great moments, 1 or 2 great episodes, and mostly just random filler. So I would say at best it's a very, very, very mixed bag. Definitely. And to be honest, this season ended with, spoilers, Piper turning out to be the killer, which I always knew there was 2 killers, and Piper was my number 2 guess. My number 1 guess was Noah, but Piper was pretty obvious. And it ended with Piper being the killer, and it ended with, oh, Audrey's probably the second killer because she's burning those letters. Ooh, why is she burning the letters? And you guys, Audrey's not the killer. She has nothing to do with anything. It's another blatant red herring that's just a massive waste of time. And the next season is just going to spend a whole 5 episodes talking about that, and it'll turn out it has nothing to do with the killer, and it'll feel like a complete waste of time, and then we'll move on from it, and the show will act like it never happened. I can just see it now. So it's complete waste. It's complete red herring. And I don't believe for a moment Audrey has anything to do with anything. It's just another lame red herring. Noah is still my number 1 pick for the killer. He still probably did it. Piper helped him out a whole lot, but it was so Noah. I'm still saying it's that because Audrey's another obvious red herring, and that's all this show is. This show will only redeem itself if the season 2 starts out with Audrey being the real killer, and it all happening from her perspective and her just killing people, because that would throw all this red herring trash right out the window. It would be completely original, and we wouldn't have to deal with all these stupid subplots, and we'd see a lot of people die. So if she was the killer and it was all from her perspective for season 2, that would be awesome. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think season 2 is just going to be more subplot nonsense with barely any relation to actual horror films and being more like a teen soap opera, which is not what Scream should be. And literally everyone that comments on the show now describes it as a soap opera, and that's a horrible thing. But it did have good moments. It did have a good last episode, and In the Trenches, if you watched that by its lonesome, you would think that it was a darn good show. So I would suggest watch the last episode and watch In the Trenches, and you'll think this is a fantastic show, and you'll wonder why I'm bashing it. But if you watch the rest, you'll know why. So very mixed bag. If you carefully selected the episodes, you might get a really good show out of it. I'll probably give season 2 a chance, but boy, God, do I hope they fix the screw-ups that they've had. They've gotten a lot of complaints, so they know exactly what they should do, and they better do it. And those are my thoughts. And once again, it is sad that Wes is gone, but his movies are going to keep being talked about and probably keep being remade for years upon years. So he'll never be forgotten. And people will be talking about him till the end of time because he was a legend and he earned it. So my deepest apologies for the family. And tell me your thoughts on the show. Tell me your thoughts and tell me what you think, and have a good night and cheers.